every year at this time, I love to watch movies. And I don't really like to watch movies most of the rest of the year, but I think there's just something in me that's connected. I remember watching movies with my family as a kid. When Christmas would come on, then you had to wait until they came on at a certain time on a certain channel. And kids, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you should ask people who lived in the 1900s. They will tell you about it. I remember I was young enough for that first Christmas when we got this machine called a VCR. It came out, and it would just look like a gigantic, rectangle, and you'd put tapes in it, and then that made it magical at Christmas. You could watch these movies over and over and over. You didn't have to wait for Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer at a certain time, right? But I think I love it because I'm with my boys and I'm with my wife, and we've started to create memories. We kind of make up different years. Different people get to choose the first Christmas movie, and so we all dig it and love it and walk through them. Even in the whole kind of marketplace of Christmas movies, the Hallmark Corporation, they make almost 50% of their revenue in the month of December off of Hallmark movies. Okay. Now, personally, I've never seen one, but Brett Lee's told me they're incredible. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, Brett. I had to do it. Just kidding. No, it was Jake Weiss. But he apparently, there's a lot of hope and desire and love that high school people who didn't know, who broke up in high school, come back 20 years later. That movie gets told over and over, and just people love it. And it's always at Christmas. I dig it. But my point is, we love these things, I think, because there's these messages of hope. There's these messages of man, even when things are sideways, can it get right? But here's what I want to say today. That's fine. But we stand here today saying there's so much more available to us. I love the season and I love the sentimentality of it. But what I don't want to do is equate Jesus with that, because there's a realness and a truth and a strength to him that surpasses all of it. Some of you have asked, hey, why do we have Christmas decorations up? It's not December yet. Well, in the church calendar, there's a season called Advent. And Advent for thousands of years has started the 4 Sundays before Christmas. So what we'll always do is we'll always start our Advent series the 4 Sundays before Christmas. Because back then, there wasn't a Thanksgiving day, okay? So you're if some of you say, you got to just let Thanksgiving breathe a little bit. It's hey, I got all the love for Thanksgiving. But what I want to do is I want to celebrate like the church has done for thousands of years as we look forward to the birth, right? You feel like, Kyle, what's Advent? I don't know what that is. Well, I think nowadays we think about it as waiting to celebrate the birth of Jesus. Remembering the birth of Jesus. It's not a bad thing. We just talked about remembering your story is a good thing. But that's just part of Advent. What the original church used, like the early church, what they used at the Advent season for every year was to remind them that he came once, and guess what? He's coming again. So it was to remind them of anticipation that this king, who it didn't seem like he was going to come, but he did, that he's coming again. And then they even kind of took that word, which Advent in its general sense means like waiting, anticipating an arrival. And then the church added this idea of preparing. So for them, it was taking seriously the stories in the Bible that said, man, Jesus is coming again. Are you going to be ready? Are you going to be trusting? Are you going to be faithfully, eagerly anticipating? So that's what I want this series to be. Like what if I told you Christmas is all about the good feels, but so much more? That it's all about a king who's not stuck in a storybook, but who's alive today on a throne and says, I'm coming again. What if I told you that the next 5 messages, they can be as powerful as anything we want them to be because they're the truth of who God is, and it's at the heart of his message. Like I don't want to coast on Christmas with sentimentality, okay? It's the number one time, and well, this and Easter. Those are the two times where people outside of the church, you go invite them, you tell them to come to Christmas Eve, and they'll say, sure, I'll go. Yeah, I'll go. Like it's kind of part of their deal. Like I have family members who at Christmas time, they blast that song we just sang. Come, let us adore him. Like that is worship music, right? I have a friend who once they realized that, they were like, man, I just don't like Christmas songs. And I was like, a good deal of it is worship music. Not Mariah Carey, but like the good deal of it, right? And once they kind of brought that in, they were like, now I just go around Target and I'm like, grab it and they're like, come let us adore him. Sometimes I'll just go, yeah, drop down, you know. She only had security visitor once or twice. But what if I told you we don't have to coast? That this could be a moment where we invite those friends, invite those family members, and they can hear a message. And they can hear a truth that isn't just rooted in sentimentality, but is rooted in the power and the love of God. So what I want to do today is I want to start our series by talking through a prophecy. A prophecy that at first might seem obscure, it might seem out there, it might seem, I don't know why God had to do this, but I think by the end we start to go, oh, that's what Christmas is saying. That's what is at the heart of this season. It's from Isaiah 53. And it's a prophecy about Jesus and about the coming Messiah before he was ever here. And it's about specifically who he is and what he will go through. It says this, for he grew up before him like a young plant and like a root out of dry ground. He had no form or majesty that we should look at him, no beauty that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. And as one from whom men hide their faces, he was despised, and we esteemed him not. Hold that there for a minute, Jonathan. Now, as I go through that, if you feel a tension, if you feel like, oh, that's who Jesus is, like I want you to sit in that tension. I want you to feel that tension. Let that tension be real. Like we're talking about Jesus, the King of Kings, the God who is right now sitting exalted on a throne, and it's saying, man, he had no form or majesty that we should look at him, no beauty that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. And as one from whom men hid their faces, he was despised, and we esteemed him not. Think about that passage. In fact, I even want us to read it together. Like what my boy Isaiah and I have been doing is we've been getting up in the morning. He kind of led the charge, to be honest, so I'm not trying to take credit for it. Like I started to hear him getting up at 5 a.m. and reading his Bible, and I was like, God, that's awesome. Praise God, my boy's doing that. And I felt like he was like, hey, why aren't you? Who, me? And I was like, hey, man, can I start reading the Bible with you? He's like, yes. So we get up at 5, we make our espresso, and we have a little camp trailer. So we go into our camp trailer and the little light, and we read the Bible together. We read a chapter. Right now we're in the book of John. We read a chapter of John, and then we go back through the chapter, and then we read it very slowly. And then we'll talk about, so we'll read it all the way through, and then we'll go back and just parse it through. And we'll ask God, like, what are you saying to me? And we'll come up with questions, and we'll talk about our day and our life and how it's intersecting. And what I want to do is, I just read this. Now I just want us to read this together. I want us to just take it in. And maybe even before, it's just my prayer is that, God, if you see something in there, would you speak it to us? Share it with us. Let's go. For he grew up before him like a young plant. You can come on. And like a root out of dry ground. He had no form or majesty that we should look at him. No beauty that we should desire him. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. And as one from whom men hid their faces, he was despised, and we esteemed him not. You start to think, man, I want to be proud of my king. Why does it say that he's despised? Man, I want everyone to know him. Why does it say he's rejected? Man, I want him to be so marketable. Why does it say he's not that good looking, right? Today, I want to walk through some truths that I think help unlock God's wisdom and majesty and beauty in this. So what you have to know about Jesus, he's coming from above. He is God in the flesh. And God in his wisdom plans it this way, makes it this way, so that we can know him intimately. These first few points, they're going to be a little maybe weird, but I want us to hold tight with them and sit with them because I think they're meaningful and powerful. And the first one is this: his birth was 100% painful, okay? I'm just telling you that. For Mary, like, he was God in the flesh. He came down. It was real. I promise you. There's no word for epidural in Hebrew, okay? Like, she had that baby, and I promise it was hard, okay? Like, he was fully human. Like, he didn't snap a finger, and then the baby was in the manger, like, all pretty, like, woo, right? Like, she was on a donkey. Now, I remember when my wife was pregnant in an SUV, and that seemed uncomfortable for her, let alone a donkey, right? She's in a stable, and it's raw, and it's real, and it's about as human as you can get. The day after Thanksgiving, we went to a live nativity, my family and I. We weren't here in town. We were a few states away. And the only thing that always drives me crazy about live nativities, and I don't know how they should interact it, but it's just how quaint everything is and how ordered it is. And if you've ever been to a birth, it's not that way, okay? Like every picture of Joseph after when the baby's in the manger, he's just like, right? The first time I saw my kid born, I was like this: what just happened, right? I've told you before, I've had a healthy fear of joy ever since I met her. After I saw her give birth to my son, I was like, I am never messing with her, right? Like, I saw a strength, I saw a power, I saw life give birth to life. It was like, what is going on? And God doesn't circumvent that. He doesn't go around that. He grows up as a baby. Like, there's a literal reality of he had to be potty trained. He had to be burped, right? If you saw the movie that came out last year, it was a great book I used to read as a kid called The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. It's awesome. They got the baby, she picks up the baby Jesus and she starts bapping it on the back, right? And they're like, you can't burp the baby Jesus. Like, yes, you have to burp the baby Jesus. Like, he's real. It's not just a story. That's my point with this point. Can we take it in? Can we let it be real? Can we let it be such a profound gift that our God would say, I love you so much, I'm going to take on a form just like yours. And I'm not going to go around it. There's this fun theological term called kenosis, which is called the emptying, essentially. It talks about it in the book of Philippians. And this is what is happening when Jesus is born. It says this: have this mind among yourselves, which is yours in Christ Jesus, who, though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped. But here's the word: but emptied himself. emptied himself so that he could be fully human by taking on the form of a servant, being born in the likeness of men, and being found in human form, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on the cross. So the next time you read this in a Bible study, like just write in your note if you want to sound, oh yeah, this is the canonic passage. Just say that. It's for fun. It's extra credit. But this is the picture of our God being willing to empty himself so that he could know us. So that if you're in a point right now that's painful, that's hurting, that's raw, that's unpredictable, that's unplanned, you can go, oh, my God knows that. Oh, my God experienced that. See, as much as Christmas is the feels, right? It's the real. It's the truth. Next part of the passage from Isaiah, I want to zone in on this one. He had no form or majesty that we should look at him, no beauty that we should desire him. Guys, this, you can leave that one up there too, Jonathan. Like, this verse meant something back then because images always mattered to people. We worship ourselves. Our vanity is a hard thing to fight. But has it ever meant more than right now where vanity rules, right? Where you can be famous and it's like, what are you famous for? I'm famous for being famous, right? I love it. My grandma, she died like 15 years ago. Like if she came back and she's like, what does she do? That's called an influencer, right? What do? Well, they get free stuff and they take pictures of themselves using that stuff on Instagram, right? Like, what? The concept is mind-blowing, but it's all built around our looks. It's all built around how we appear. And then God says, my Savior is not going to have any form or majesty that we should look at him. He's not going to be ripped. He's not going to be shredded. He's not going to be someone where they're like, I want that dude to lead my army. No beauty that we should desire him. It's like his birth was 100% painful, I promise you. And also this, he was never voted Israel's sexiest man alive, okay? Nobody ever was like, he's the guy. Nobody ever was like, that's the one I want. Until he started talking, until they started to see the power, until they saw the grace, until they saw the kindness. We're going to get to that, so I want us to get there. I want us to live in the tension. But I read this often, and if you don't know it, there's this Seinfeld episode where their friend has a baby, and the baby is super ugly, okay? And they're like, come see the baby, right? And if you know Seinfeld, I'm sorry if you don't, but Jerry and Elaine and Kramer, and they're getting the baby out of the crib, and all of a sudden they all just go like, whoa, right? Kramer specifically can't like make eye contact with it. I don't know that it was that bad. I'm not saying Isaiah is saying that. But he's saying there was nothing that made us go, oh, there's the Messiah. Oh, that's it. Do you know why? Because God doesn't play by the world's rules ever. Ever. He says he's not going to look like what you think it's going to look like. It's not going to be something that pops off the page at you. So you got to pay attention. You got to listen. You got to trust him. So he's this God who comes in the flesh, and man, he knows pain. And then he knows what it means to be overlooked. He knows what it means to be forgotten. And then there's this other thing. He's not from anywhere important. He's not from like the best school or the coolest town. Like where he was from, Nazareth, no one wanted to go to brunch in Nazareth, okay? Like it was not the place that people from LA came to on the weekends. They always had no traffic, okay? Like even one of his followers, Nathaniel, do you know what he said? can anything good come from Nazareth? This was one of his disciples. This was when he was meeting Jesus. And they were telling him, you got to meet him, you got to meet him. They're like, what's his name? Jesus of Nazareth. He's like, the Messiah from Nazareth? No way, right? What I think this means, though, is that we can all find ourselves in this story right here. Because every one of us has known pain. Every one of us has known what it's like to wake up in the morning and not know what the end of the day is going to be like. Every one of us has had things happen that we did not expect to happen. Every one of us has been overlooked. Every one of us has been forgotten. Every one of us at times has felt like we don't measure up, like we don't have the resume, I don't care how smart you are, how rich you are, how educated you are, this world, and it takes no prisoners. Everyone at some point has felt these feelings, has gone through this. So what if I told you he lived this life to know you? Like not just know you as the person of whatever your name is and when you were born, that's true. But what if I told you he literally lived this life to know a human existence? It's the only story in all the faiths that you look at where a God would empty himself and come down and submit himself as a servant. That's why we praise God at Christmas. That's why we hear these worship songs, and I just want to encourage you, if you're in Target, if you're in the mall, if anybody even goes to the mall anymore, just worship him when you hear those songs. He lived this life to know you. You never open your mouth and utter something to him where he's like, man, I don't understand that. I don't get that. You going through some family problems? Jesus had family problems. You're going through questions in what the future looks like? Like he understood that. You have tragedy, death in your life? Like he experienced that. What if I told you he lived this life to know you? Do you remember that passage we read from Philippians? It doesn't say he was forced to empty himself. He willingly did so. What if I told you he lived this life to suffer for you? See, we have a choice. It's kind of one choice that everyone has. We're either followers of Jesus, where we say, I'm all in on him. Or we're followers, the Bible would say, of like the original Adam, where it's like, I'm all in on him. And if you're like, what is that, Kyle? I don't know what that is. Well, this Adam pathway is the pathway of me. It's the pathway of all figured out. I'll have to come up with the answers. I'll have to come up with the solution. I'll either do it myself or I'll link myself with someone who I think can. I'll put myself in the right spot. Or at some point, I'll just give up altogether. Or there's Jesus, who the Bible calls the new Adam, where we go all in on him. And all of the sins and the brokenness from the me way, he takes on himself. And we receive a new identity. And what he deserved, Jesus, we now receive. And what the original Adam deserved, Jesus himself receives on our behalf, takes on. Do you remember that passage? It says he was despised by men. Like he takes that on for us. See, this changes everything. So what if I told you he lived his life to know you, he lived his life to suffer for you, and he lived this life that he lived here to change everything? like the greatest story now. The centerpiece is not the most powerful. It's not the most beautiful. It's someone who is despised. It's someone who is overlooked. But because of the power of God within him, because of his faithfulness to trusting God, because of his obedience, because of his love, because of his sacrifice, it's the greatest story the world could ever know. It changes everything. It's accessible to everyone. There's no one in here today who can go, I don't know if that's for me. No, it is for everyone. And so what I want us to do over the next, now it's 3 Sundays and Christmas Eve, is let's be a church on a mission to share this story, to live this story, to invite people to hear this story. What I want us to do is even go to God in a minute. And let's just say, God, what would it look like if this wasn't a sentimental story or a traditional story, but it was a burning, living story in me? What I want to do over the next several weeks, every time we meet in December, that baptistry is going to be filled, okay? And so I want to just be praying that there would be people who said, this story today is alive right now as it ever was. And he met me in my pain. Or I know he suffered for me. Or his story changed everything for me. If you're ready to be baptized, you can fill out an I believe card today. You can drop it in the box. You can hand it to me. But over the next several weeks, I'm going to just keep inviting people to kind of put our foot on the gas and go, man, this story is true, and it is alive, and it is real. And we don't worship a God who doesn't know who we are. We worship a God who came to be with us. We don't worship a God who doesn't understand suffering. We worship a God who took on all the suffering. And we don't worship a God who plays into the stories that we create in the world. He crushes all of them and says he stands on the greatest story that is the hope of the world. So I want to invite Brittany up now, because what she's going to do is she's going to play a song that most of y'all have probably never heard. I know that's almost everyone, because she even tweaked this song, right? And I want you to just take it in. So normally right now what we do is we get up and we take communion, but for the first song, just take it in. And ask God, like, God, over the next few weeks, what does it look like for me to receive this story and live this story? Invite people in on this story. As she plays it, just talk to him. Just go through the lyrics. And then after she's done, she'll go into the next song, and then let's go take communion together. And let's even just celebrate. Like, Christmas is a time of joy because what God said would happen, happened. And we wait now for it to happen again. And so come to this table and celebrate. Take the bread knowing he willingly had his body broken for you. He willingly emptied himself and had his blood poured out for you. What if I told you this is the greatest story the world has ever heard? Let's trust that this Christmas. All right, let's worship.
Come to